Hello, welcome to the Money Tree. I'm David Holt, and with me today is
David Marks.
Yes, the Dueling Daves, and we're so glad that you're here today.
Yes, we are. David, how's your week been so far?
It's been great. It has been great. Wonderful. As my brother says, wonderful. Everything is wonderful.
Well, sometimes the things we enjoy doing the most are the things that can stress us out the most also.
Actually, it's been a really good week. It's been 2 weeks since we recorded, by
It
the
has
way.
been. It has been. We've been.
So technically, you want to know this current week, or the week we didn't record, or the week before since then?
Any important huge events, I guess, is what I'm looking for there.
Life is good. I have no complaints.
I can agree.
God is good.
Yes, I agree with that. We finished our testing, so I'm pretty happy right now.
It's been a busy week of travel. I've had this suit on all day long, so I left at 6:45 this morning. I've been to Birmingham, and I'm back, and I've been to a faculty meeting, and we put up with our wonderful technician to get us on the air today, and so we're very thankful. Life is good. It's wonderful.
It is
wonderful.
Great. He's working very hard at that, and I think that it's important that we thank Mountain Valley News.
Really?
For taking time. Sure. Well, I mean.
Yes, of course, Mountain Valley and Farmers Telephone TV too, as well. We thank them both.
As things may be thrown at you.
And we really appreciate Chad Brown. You know, he edits us and makes you look good.
Right, and that takes a lot, and I mean a lot of work, so.
But we do appreciate the kind words. Many people have stopped me this past week and told me, hey, I've been watching your show. Hey, it came up on my Facebook feed, and very nice things to say.
Yes.
And I say, he's the smart one, and I'm just here to help.
And that's definitely not true. I think it's a team effort. So we'll look at it like that. There's no I in team.
You're only as strong as your weakest
It's link. Yeah. Well, I was going to say there's no I in team, but there's a me. So there you
There's
go.
a me. Yeah.
All right. Well, I have a great question for you. Some might
Great.
even
Now listen, I was telling you earlier when you asked me questions, you need to be sure you give me something, because these are not prearranged questions, and like when I say them, it's like, no, that's wrong.
Well, some of us are very compassionate and very great at giving a very supportive and kind tone when someone's incorrect, and then you have the Marks family way of doing that, which is not so much. So I come by that honest.
We're not saying anything negative about my wife, but it could be your dad.
Could be, or both. So here's some might even say $1 million question, but we'll say $100,000 question for today.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Where would Aunt Vicky go if something happened to you? Oh, wait a minute. Let me rephrase that. Who would take care of your family if something were to happen to you?
Heaven forbid something happened to me.
Sure, right. We don't want that to happen, but we have to plan for both the good and the bad.
Well, I would say the party would start.
The party would start. The traveling would begin. Piñatas, and
I would hope they would be sad for a moment, but
Sure.
Well, you got something else in mind, or are you trying to ask me a different question?
No, I do. Here's what I'm looking at. We have this great safety net, if we can use that term. Would that be? I think we can use that term.
Oh, I get it. Are you asking me if I'm worth more, dead or alive?
Well, some people look at it like that.
Probably dead.
Well, would be the case with me too. So, what I'm asking is life insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have life insurance to protect your family? It's personal, I know, but.
Yes, I do have life insurance. My wife works in insurance.
Right. So
therefore, we have life insurance.
And that was a pretty. I had a good idea of what you might say when I asked that question.
Okay.
I kind of did.
Actually, we bought it when we first married. When I was very young, is when we bought our policy. Our first policy.
Okay. Well, and that, we're going to get into today why that was not a bad thing.
Really? We did something right?
You did something right.
Did y'all hear that? I did something right before you even were thought about.
Yes.
No, I take it back.
Don't tell your age there.
You were very small when we were married.
That is true. I think I was a ring bearer in your
No,
like
you were like 2 maybe.
Okay,
3.
maybe not.
You were there causing ruckus.
I had a lot more hair then, so.
You were cuter then.
That's probably true. That's probably true. Well, age and stress. So let's talk about life insurance today, and let's talk about, there's really 3 types we want to discuss, and 2 maybe big umbrellas that we want to put those under. The first one being a cash value insurance, which will hold what we will call whole life and universal life, and then the other which will be term life insurance.
I really just thought there were two, whole life and term life, but there's universal?
There's universal, there's flex life, there's actually several different brands, but you can really probably just, if you wanted to, just for simplistic reasons, we're going to lump them into two categories, which is cash value and term. So that's
all right. So whole life would be in the cash value and term is term.
Term is term.
Gotcha.
Yes. That was a good answer.
Thank you.
So how was that? Was that pretty good?
That was much better.
Okay. So first it's important to determine how much you're going to need. And we have one slide here to look at if we can go to that real quick. So there's a formula that you can use if you're one of the nerdy guys like me and you want to try to figure it out. And you have to remember that we want to calculate inflation into everything. Why would we want to calculate inflation?
Because it costs more. The older we live, it costs more. You remember back in the day when I was your age, gas was much cheaper than it is today.
Right, it would be.
But inflation has made it more and more expensive.
Yes, and that's what happens.
Or a loaf of bread, or a gallon of milk, or a price of eggs, or...
Right. Just you can put it in whatever way you want to. So the formula that you can use to figure out that inflationary amount is you can say your future amount, we can say FA if you want to use an acronym, or just future amount, is equal to today's amount, which would be whatever sum you're looking at, multiplied times, now this is where you're going to have to use a please excuse my dear Aunt Sally that I know you taught and I taught.
I did. Order of operations, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Order of operations, 1 plus the inflation rate, which would be a percentage, but you got to change it to a decimal.
Correct.
So right now, for our purposes, I used 3%, and then you have to raise that to the number of years you want to look at. Okay. So example that I used is over 30 years' time. If you take $40,000 with a 3% inflation rate, that would actually be $97,090. So why would that be important?
That's what $40,000 will buy you in 30 years.
30 years, roughly.
Is that another good answer?
It is. And so let's think about this. Do you think a $100,000 life insurance policy would take care of your family if you took a 30-year policy out?
No.
Why not?
Because it's not worth as much in 30 years as it is today.
Right, and that's a perfect answer. There you go.
I got so many right today.
You know,
I'm proud of myself.
what if we had a scoreboard here and we laid out, the David hits and the David misses? Yeah. I was trying to think of a nicer way to put it, but no, I didn't really.
He did mention earlier before we went on the air, he's going to do me a question answer with a yes or a no, and he's not going to tell me the questions ahead of time. I'm like, but you're going to make me look bad. But, the whole purpose is to make finances something that you feel like, hey, I didn't know that, but I learned something.
Right.
And that's why we're here.
And there's probably those out there today that may even watch our show that may be working in this industry that are like, oh, there's so much more to cover. But remember, we try to do this to keep it simple, to, for those who may just have real quick questions, they can watch this and they can get an idea, oh, well, that's something I need to look at or something I need to learn about.
Talk to someone who specializes in it to get more information.
Well, the disclaimer always goes that we give that, we do not on a day-to-day basis handle people's finances. If you are very serious about it and you're getting ideas from us, go talk to a financial planner. Talk to someone who can help you in this. Go talk to an insurance agent so they know what to, this is what you need to do. So, all right, back to what I asked you. $100,000 in 30 years, that's going to be like $40,000 today. So
which is a lot of money, but it will not provide for your family for an extended period of time.
Sure, and I always think that it's a good idea to calculate how long your family's going to need that money, because to what you may look at in today's stage of life with your children grown compared to what you would have looked at when they were smaller would be totally different.
Right.
Because your household expenditures are not going to be the same.
Right.
They're going to be different. So, you can take that, and if we looked at it like a 30-year policy, let's say you made $40,000 a year right now, okay? That $40,000 a year for a 30-year time period would be, drum roll.
A lot.
Very good answer. A lot is correct. Yes, that would be $1.2 million.
Yes.
Right. So you can see where over a 30-year time, if that's what you're looking at as a career, you make $40,000, and of course that's not accounting for inflation that would bear down in 30 years. That $40,000 is really worth half or less than what it would be. you're looking at a $1.2 million life insurance policy.
Which is expensive.
Well, it can be, yes. Now, so let's think about this for just a moment, okay? Let's just take the time to look at, would you need a $1.2 million life insurance policy?
I'm going to be dead, so I wouldn't need it.
That's a great answer. And that actually can play into when we're going to start talking about the two different types.
Okay.
So I recommend, instead of trying to think of $40,000 times 30 years as $1.2 million, I would say a better calculation, because of the expense, would to be take the money that you need and put that over the amount of time.
Okay.
So $2,000 a month, let's say, that you spend.
Okay.
That's probably a low,
very low
household spending level. $2,000 a month times 12 months times 30 years would be $720,000. So that $720,000 would be a lot easier to manage in a payment when you go to buy your policy than it would be to try to, buy that $1.2 million policy. Because number one, if you walk into an insurance broker's office and you say, hey, I want to, buy a $1.2 million policy, they're going to say, for yourself or for someone else. By the way, can you buy a policy for someone else?
Trick question. I don't think you can without their knowledge.
You can do it if you have legal rights to prove that you want to insure them. So like, you couldn't just walk in and be like, hey, that old guy that I saw walking, he's out there, he's barely hanging on, and I'm going to take out a $400,000 policy on him. You have to have provability, which would be like your children, your spouse, your children, something like that. So let me throw a few numbers at you here, because I like to do that, because we work on budgets. Right? Isn't that what we talk about here?
We're trying to help people with their spending.
We're trying to help people with their spending. So if you have a term policy at $720,000, now term, which we're going to talk about in a moment, is over a period of time, hence the word term. $720,000 term policy, this is for a healthy person, tobacco-free. So why would tobacco-free matter?
Because that would be one of the factors that it would shorten your life.
It could shorten your life, and that's seen as a risk, right? Okay. So once they crunch this in, if this was a good preferred policy with tobacco-free, you're looking at about $55 a month.
Okay, that's on term.
That's on term. Now, for every $5 that you spend, well, we'll say $100 insurance that costs you $5, it's going to cost you $95 for a whole life policy. So for a whole life policy at $720,000, that's going to be about $1,100 a month.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So now let's take and look at why there's such a big difference in the cost of those two policies.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that. Okay, and you jump in at any time. Please don't let me do all the talking, because people get tired of hearing my voice. So if we can go to slide number 2, and let's look at the cash value life insurances. This is 20 times more expensive than term. Okay? So you have whole life, which is from the purchase time that you buy it until you die. Okay? The younger, the cheaper. That's what we talked about with you a few minutes ago. That was a smart decision, because you bought that policy young, which means you have a cheaper rate. Okay? It's treated almost like a savings account.
Okay.
Because it builds a principal amount and things like that. The price is locked in typically, unless you have universal. We'll get that to a moment. Can be used to buy additional insurance. So what that is if you have a whole life policy, that company is going to pay you a return on the money. Like I said, it's treated as a savings account. Well, you can take those dividends that they pay you, which would be your interest, and you can do what's called paid up additions, which means if you had a $60,000 policy, they'll start kicking in a little more of your dividends, which buys you more life insurance.
Right.
You can also use this to be tax-free on some returns, depending on what it is. Okay. The other part of whole life, or of cash value, is universal life, which can be adjusted due to your need, which would be flexible. Okay. It can be borrowed against, as with whole life, but One of the reasons why it's important not to have a huge whole life policy and to borrow against it is because if you borrow money, you're borrowing, number one, from yourself, and the company that you are using as your broker for your life insurance gets the interest that you borrow that money on. So basically, you're borrowing money from yourself and paying another company interest to do so.
Again, it's kind of like we talked about before with credit cards. You don't want to pay all this interest because it's like burning it.
It is like just taking that money and throwing it. So that's not always the best way to handle that. So you got to remember that. So if you buy a $200,000 policy and you pay in $100,000 in premiums when you die, how much does that policy pay?
$200,000.
That's correct.
But I'm on a roll.
That is correct. But what happened to your other $100,000 you put into it?
What happened to it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, part of it went to pay for your premiums. Part of it went to pay for the, commission for the man or woman who sold it to you. And if you look at that over a lifetime, that's not going to be a very good return on your money. Probably less than 1% return. And we've talked about those 1% returns.
Which is not good.
Not good. So now let's look at the other type of insurance, which is the term. And this is on our third slide. Now, term is set for a period of time. Okay. It should have at least 10 to 20 times your income at minimum. So if your income is $50,000 a year, you need to have more than a $50,000 life insurance policy. Okay. For every $5 spent on term, it would cost you $100 in whole life, as we said earlier.
Right.
So term is much more affordable. So when we look at term, term is very basic. It's set for a period of time. Now, how do they determine your cost on that? If you walk in and say, I want a $400,000 term policy, which is what I have on myself, okay, and my nephew,
who did you name as the beneficiary?
My nephew is now the beneficiary if something happens to me. It was my sister, now it's my nephew. So if something happens to me, he gets that $400,000. So I'm telling the insurance company, hey, I might die before this time frame, which mine's a 30-year policy. What the insurance company is looking at me and saying is, oh, no, we don't think you will. So it's almost like you're gambling on your life in a way, which, by the way, there's laws against that.
Really?
Because, sometimes people do take their own lives. What do insurance policies do when that happens?
I would think they would become void, null and void.
It depends.
It depends?
It depends.
Well, let me give you an example. My wife and my two older boys decided to go
skydiving?
Skydiving, yeah.
I knew that meant skydiving. I'm not sure.
Jumped out of the plane. And she was like, that she accused me of standing on the ground with my cell phone and an insurance policy ready to dial. But I wasn't. It was very nerve-wracking to watch it, But it wouldn't pay for something like that because you're doing a risky thing and am I right?
No.
I'm not right?
It depends.
It depends.
That's where you have, your rates are determined, and unless you lie on your policy, and by the way, sometimes there's even an umbrella. Some people can lie and after 2 years still get their benefits.
Really?
It depends. There's a lot of litigation.
You need to talk to an insurance agent.
You do. But let's just say that something had happened to Aunt Vicki, then yes, they would have paid you.
For real?
Most likely they would have paid you.
Well, I'm glad she's safe and sound.
Exactly. So, let's talk about, that policy that you bought, and I go in and I tell them I want the policy. They'll make me do, depending on the amount, they'll make me do some type of test, whether it be a medical test. Yes, they will ask you if, how many capitals are in the state of Alabama. So that's a joke.
That's a good one.
That's pretty good. So on the fly every time. So they will ask you things like, do you use tobacco? Do you use alcohol? How much do you weigh? How tall are you? Your family history of heart disease. They may even ask you to go get a physical. Some of them, over $1 million policy, which people do buy, will even ask you to go have like a resting test, like an EKG or something like that. They want to know, hey, what are we gambling?
Is that why you have to do blood work?
That is why you have to do blood work. They want to know, what are we gambling on? They want to know their odds just like you're playing your odds. Okay? So that's how they determine your price and things like that, and how much they'll even give you. So my recommendation, if I can lay this out there, okay, is that you take and buy a small whole life policy when you're young, that can be true.
So I'm too old to do that now.
No, you're not too old. You can still do that, but what's going to happen to the rate that you pay?
It's going to be high.
It's going to be much, much higher. So you buy a small whole life policy younger. You know what, Mom and Dad? You can even go do that for your child. And what would be a great thing to do if that policy is treated like a savings account, pays them a dividend in their policy? What would be a smart thing to do with that?
Reinvest it.
Paid up additions. So you're actually building and they can extract that money in time, depending on the company you go with. So you buy that small whole life policy, younger is better, smaller rate would be better. Then you buy a larger term policy to get you to the end point of maybe, let's say, retirement. I would buy a 30-year policy if I were buying a house. Why? Because most people take out a 30-year mortgage. Now, of course, if you take out a 15-year mortgage, A, you're going to pay lower interest, but B, you wouldn't need a 30-year policy unless you felt like you wanted to give your family plenty of money to live off of. Now, if something happens,
more than dead than alive.
Right, which is what we
don't want to be.
Don't want to be unless, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that'd ever be good. So let's go to our slide number 4. This is just insurance quick facts if we can do that. Number 1, life insurance payout is tax-free to your beneficiary.
Really? No taxes?
No taxes as of right now. However, Washington is trying to change that. All right, the second thing is when you buy small whole life and larger term, I recommend getting both. Now, you can talk to some brokers and they're going to say, no, you just need to buy term insurance. Whole life is a waste of money. But just in case people have bad things happen, you still have that whole life policy to fall on to bury them. Why do we even want this policy?
To bury them?
To bury them. That's why I would say a small whole life.
Funerals are expensive.
Because funerals are about $8,000, $10,000.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were that expensive.
It depends on who you do it with, but they can be. All right. Next, you need to have 10 to 20 times your income at minimum. That is on your term.
Okay.
Because remember, if you took out
whole life is too expensive.
Whole life is way too expensive unless you've just got $1,100 a month to pump into that policy.
I don't think they're paying us that here at Mountain Valley.
It's close, but no cigar, right? Isn't that what they say? And the last thing that I want to remind you about life insurance is shop around.
Yes.
Now, of course, you want to go with a licensed company that's going to be a good brokerage that's trustworthy.
And reputable and been there for a while.
Right, but you want to go with even an agent that you trust, right?
Yes.
You know, I remember one company slogan is call an agent that you trust, call that company. So you want to make sure that you shop around, but talk to someone that's legit.
Yeah.
Because you might have
you might have a great rate, but where are they when you need
right. You might have the Guggenheim Life Insurance Company
Guggenheim? That's a neat word.
Well, Guggenheim Life Insurance Company of the Upper Creeks of the North Shore Banks of New York.
Hey,
and you have something happen, you file a claim, and then they're like, oh, we're not going to pay.
Yeah.
That happens.
Based out of the Cayman Islands.
So, to recap all that,
life insurance, you need it. And the younger you are, the cheaper the rate. You need to buy you a small whole life policy when you're younger. It's not too late for parents to buy those for their children when they're just born, which is what we did.
You can do
My
that.
wife was very intelligent about that. We bought a policy on our children, each one when they were less than a year old, because the rate is so much less.
Yes.
And then as you get into the work world, you need to buy you a term policy because you have things to pay for. You've got a mortgage and a car. You've got expenses to help with your children. And so you definitely want to have a term policy. And the bigger the policy, the better, because if something were to happen to you, it would pay everything off tax-free. Of course, it would be a time of sorrow, but at least your family would be well taken care of, hopefully, when you're gone.
Well, and the responsible thing to do is to take care of what we need, right? Take care of our family. So I think that would do it. Now, we're going to move on quickly to a new segment on the show. This is
new segment.
Yes. Bum, bum, bum. Can we music there? So the new
drummer.
We do. That would be great. We just had a little live band over here. That'd be even better, right?
Let's work on that.
All right, we will. So the new segment is going to be our weekly stock picks, and this is something
I don't understand anything about stock markets, but you do it often.
I do. I typically buy and sell every day. Not always, but every day. So
you're a card shark? No,
I would
investment nerd, or what are you?
Investment nerd. I like that term. I don't have maybe super investment nerd.
Super?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I have the power of interest. I don't know. So anyway, dividends, that could be the power.
Want money, money.
So looking at that, I use an app called Robinhood. And what
rob from the rich and
give to the poor, and I'm the poor. That would be me. So what Robinhood does is Robinhood actually lets you buy and sell stock commission free, which is huge to someone wanting to start out.
Yeah.
They also do not require you to have any minimums. So to where E-Trade or Ameritrade may say, we need you to put $5,000 in, Robinhood literally let me start the account, and I tested if there's in the first deposit I made just to see if they would let me do it, $10.
You started in the stock market with $10. And it's Robinhood, the app?
Robinhood, the app. You can get it both for Google Android systems and Apple. And I'm here to tell you folks, I've got folks that I work with that we talk about this actually on Thursday nights. A very good friend of mine, almost like an older brother, Ricky Barkley's his name, and he and I will go eat, of course, which is awesome. And then we'll talk about our strategy.
Really?
Yes, and we'll talk about what we're looking at doing. So here's what I want to do. We're going to take it every week, and we're going to look at maybe 2, 3, 4 stocks I feel like that you could take a little bit of money. Now, of course.
Now, first, let me a disclaimer. We're just regular guys, and
yeah, absolutely.
For fun. So don't invest all your savings in this stock that we're talking about.
Right. Don't run to the bank and take all your money out. What I've done with this, the money that I would spend on frivolous things like maybe snacks or Cokes or
the movies,
going to the movies that I don't ever do. That's where this money goes. Okay. So this is kind of my fun money.
Fun money.
Right.
I wish I had some fun money.
Well,
when you have a large extended family, all your fun
it's
money
hard to
pays
have
for
fun money
to the meal. And when you go out to eat.
And when it's just you, then you can do that, right?
Okay.
So
we're going to give you something to play with.
So here we go. A little bit of fun money. Now, again, it is very wise to always be very patient with the stock market. Now, I know a lot of people will be like, you ever buy any penny stocks? Well, I have bought a few, and on some, I've made up to $100 a day in some of those. However, there have been days when I've lost $60 too. Mm-hmm. So you have to be cautious. Again, remember, I can't tell you to go out and invest all your money. I'm not going to. This is just something, trial and error. You learn, and that's what I've done with it. So the first one I want to talk to you about. Now, this is for those who will see the show before May 31st. Remember that day. Because I would never typically tell you to buy stocks that are from companies outside the United States. I just don't feel like that's very safe. You can, but with Robinhood, you can buy this stock called China Digital TV, and we actually, I think, have a slide to show these. The symbol for China Digital TV is STV. Now, the stock price today closed like 168, something like that. The reason why I would tell you to buy this before May 31st is because they're going to pay a special dividend of $1.50 per share that you own after May 30th, or for the owners of those of May 31st. Wow. So when I bought into it, it was at like 158. So literally, I will double my money on May 31st, if the way that I looked at it. Another one, and of course after that I'll probably sell it off, and that will probably happen to a lot of it. Another one I would recommend, now these are going to be some that pay good dividends and some that don't. Orchard Island Capital, ORC is the symbol there. They pay a 15% monthly dividend per share. So what I like to do is I like to diversify. I have a little bit of money that I throw at stocks like that China Digital TV. I take about 80% of it and I put it into good dividend paying stocks. So it pays 15%. Another one that I like right now that is just at a lower price, I feel like, is Stage Stores. Some of you ladies probably know who Stage Stores is. Stage Stores has bags, clothing. They pay a 21% quarterly dividend. Another one quickly is R.R. Donnelley & Sons. They pay a 15% quarterly dividend. And the last one I have on here pays no dividend, but I feel like it has good potential, and that's Ollie's Bargain Outlet.
We have one of those close by.
We have one of those close by, and since the IPO, which is the initial public offering for Ollie's, that stock has really taken off.
Wow.
So each one of those that I've mentioned to you, and a lot of people want to go out and buy Facebook or Alphabet, which is the parent company for Google, or Amazon. Well, in 1999, Amazon would have been an awesome investment. You could have made big bucks. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is today you're going to spend $800 per share to buy that kind of stock.
Ooh, that's a lot of fun money.
That's a lot of fun money. That's something that a lot of people typically are not going to put into it. So we want to make sure that we are. I'm sorry here, Dave. My timer is. Can I dismiss that?
You can dismiss it.
Can I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Had my timer set to make sure I didn't miss my stocks. So we want to make sure to tell you again that we just give you ideas. Every week, you may take some of these companies and just watch them. And with Robinhood, now it takes about a month to set that up because you do have to file, of course, your Social Security, link it to your bank account because this is something that has to be reported to the IRS.
So it's not fun money that you don't pay taxes on.
Oh, no. If you have gains in the stock market, now if you have gains, like the day that I made $100, I don't even remember the company. I got on Yahoo Finance, saw where it had taken some turns that I thought were for the better. It was a biomedical company, and I threw like $300 into it, and bam, made another extra $100 on top of it. That $100, if I had withdrawn it, I would have paid about 40 of that $100 to the government. But I turned around and reinvest that money because, of course, it's my fun money.
Well, and the thing of it is with the stock market, it's not something you get into and get out quickly. You got to stay in for the long haul. And if you're looking for something to do, I mean, there's sometimes nothing on TV to do. And if you're going to dabble in it, do it responsibly.
Well, here's the challenge I would give people. If you're going to take $10, $20, $30 of your paycheck this week, and you're going to drive to Georgia or another state, and you're going to buy lottery tickets, take that money and put it in stocks. Buy some dividend-bearing stocks because at least when you have those dividend-bearing stocks, it's going to pay you to have them. Stage Stores, the one of them that I mentioned, pays a great dividend rate. That 21%, we don't know how long that'll happen. To give you an example, Ferrogas. You heard of Ferrogas Company? Okay, Ferrogas, I think it's FGP, something like that is their symbol. Ferrogas was paying like maybe an 18%, 20% dividend rate. But their stock wasn't doing well, and their company was in a little bit of financial quag, and so they cut it to like 4. So just because the dividend rate exists today doesn't mean that it always will, and that's why it's important that you look at that from day to day and make sure that you...
It's not something you can just do and don't come back for another week. You need to work on it daily?
Well, you could do it in another week.
Could you?
You could. I would even say that you could do it monthly.
Okay.
If you just said, I'm going to try to put a little money into it and I'm going to buy Orchard Island Capital for my first month, and it's $10 a share and you put $100 in, you get 10 shares, then you could come back to it in a month and see what it's done. Which, by the way, all those go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and one thing that David did with his 6th grade math classes, you taught the kids to do that and mess with the stock market and see what they could have made and would have made.
Yes.
And, he was teaching those kids in the 6th grade to look at the stock market. So it runs, you get an app, it runs on your phone, you see what everything's happening to it. It's kind of like we're on social media anyway, Instagram.
It's all there.
It's all there. So it gives you another option of things to do, to invest your money and do it wisely.
Absolutely. Actually, when those kids would do that, I would give them, I had certificates printed out, and I would write down what they bought, when they bought it, how much they paid for it, and they would have to track it and see. Of course, we did it on paper and pencil, and we built portfolios on Google's Finance to help them do that. But one of the big bets when I did this, one of the last years that I remember is I had kids invest in Krispy Kreme. And if you had, I invest in their donuts a lot because they're awesome. So they invested in Krispy Kreme and had a little bit of a return, but they actually today would have probably more than doubled their money.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So, and I think I gave them like $100,000 to start out with. So I gave them some pretty high figures to actually begin with.
That's a lot of fun money.
It is. And here's the thing about it, folks. We are on social media. We are here to help you out. So let's say that you find a great stock pick yourself. You feel like you have found one that gives a good dividend return or has a good rate of return. Hey, make a comment on the page. Let others know.
And share it with us. We'll be sure and share it with others. And hopefully at the end of every show from this point forward, we'll be talking about the stock market and some good things to watch, what the stock market is doing in certain areas, and we want to help you.
Absolutely.
We want to help you be wise with your money because if you don't manage it, somebody else will.
Somebody else will. That's right. That's right.
Or at least that's what I've always been told. If I don't take care of it, somebody else would be glad to.
I think that's very true. I think that's very true.
And we want you to send us your questions. Dave here is going to ask me a question and answer session to review in a few weeks of all the different shows we've had. You realize we've been doing this a while. This is our 5th or 6th show.
I think this is our 5th.
So sometimes I forget. I think it's the gray hair.
Could be. Or it could just be the stress, or a combination of both. And coming up, since we have just a second or two left here to go over this, coming up in the upcoming weeks, we're going to talk about ways that if you are absolutely just swamped in your finances, your household is buried, ways that you can dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah, nothing's unfixable.
Nothing is unfixable.
You just got to keep working, keep plugging, keep swimming.
That's right.
Keep swimming.
That's right.
I think that's on a Disney thing.
It's a Finding Nemo.
Is it really?
It is.
Okay. Well, it's been a while since I watched cartoons and that kind of deal, but
right.
What
I understand.
I
understand.
It's really been nice to hear some of the good comments, the nice things many people are saying. And yes, you are the smart one. I give you the credit for it.
Well, I'll take it.
You'll take it?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll tell everyone all the time that my brain has grown so much it pushes my hair out. So,
that's a good one.
Gives me
that's a very good one.
Nice reflective area there up there.
Hey, we all got to do what we got to do.
That's right.
The Money Tree. We're on Farmers Telephone TV Channel 6. We're also on Facebook. And we do appreciate MtnValley.com for letting us bring this to you each week.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, we will have tons of more things to bring to you. But, if you're watching, you're learning a few things. We want to make sure that we are bringing you things you need.
That's right.
If there's something we haven't addressed, something you'd like to address in the future, we'd be glad to do that. But I will say, one thing that I have learned from young people, they have no clue how to keep up or balance their checkbook.
Yes.
So that might be one thing we might want to start with when we're helping people dig out is balancing your checkbook.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the needs that you have, creating a monthly budget, a month-to-month budget. That's essential with how much money you spend.
A monthly budget that actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my son, your nephew, and his wife
cousin.
the other night. Oh yeah, it is your cousin. That's
Yes.
right. Sorry, I had an old person moment. And they were out to eat, and I said, but it's not in your envelope.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, he's been golfing twice this month, so we decided that we would spend some golf money at the restaurant.
Sounds good. Sounds like a
Really?
good plan.
I'm trying to help them manage their money.
I would have probably not spent the money, but I'm a tightwad.
Okay.
So
You're a tightwad?
I am, very much so.
Well, I'm not. I spend money, as my wife will say, don't write a check. We don't have the money.
Yeah, because it'll bounce.
It will. Well, we appreciate you guys watching us on Mountain Valley today, and I guess we'll see them next time.
Absolutely. Please be sure to check our Facebook page and check us out online, davidomarch.com/themoneytree, or you can check us out on Facebook or with Mountain Valley News.
There you go.
So,
see you next time.
thank
Thanks.
you.